The room was dead silent, except for the faint hum of machines. 10 of the smartest engineers in the world stood frozen, their faces pale, staring at a small, ordinary woman named Lila. She was no scientist, no genius, just a cleaner who mopped floors at the high-tech lab. But there she was, standing at the control panel, her finger hovering over a button no one had dared to touch. The massive screen in front of them flickered, then glowed bright green. The system was online. The impossible problem solving the energy core that had stumped the engineers for months was fixed. Lila, the cleaner, had done it. How did you know? Stammered Dr. Harris, the lead engineer, his glasses slipping down his nose. Lila just shrugged, her mop still in one hand. It just made sense, she said softly. The other engineers gasped, some shaking their heads, others whispering in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. They were the experts, hired by the government to save the city's failing power grid. Lila was just nobody. Yet, the core hummed perfectly, its energy flowing smoothly for the first time in years. The city wouldn't go dark tonight. But then, the screen flashed red. A loud alarm blared, and the words, "System Overload," blinked in bold letters. Lila's eyes widened. She stepped back, her mop clattering to the floor. The engineers rushed to the controls, shouting over each other. "What did you do?" one yelled at Lila. Her face turned pale. Had she just broken everything? The room shook as the core's hum grew louder, almost like a scream. Everyone froze, waiting for the worst. Would the core explode? Would the city lose power forever? Lila's heart pounded as she stared at the chaos she'd caused. Or had she? The story started 3 weeks earlier in a small, dusty town called Brightville. Lila was 32, a single mom who lived in a tiny apartment with her 8-year-old son, Timmy. She wasn't rich or famous. She cleaned the high-tech lab at the edge of town, mopping floors and emptying trash cans while the engineers worked on their fancy machines. Lila didn't understand their big words or complex math, but she listened. Every day, she overheard them arguing about the energy Korea giant machine that powered the whole city. It was failing, and no one could figure out why. Lila wasn't supposed to care. Her job was to clean, not to think. But she couldn't help it. At night, she'd lie awake, picturing the core's wires and gears like a puzzle in her mind. Timmy would ask, "Mom, why do you look so worried?" She'd smile and say, "Just thinking, sweetie." But deep down, Lila felt something strange, like she was meant to help, even if no one believed she could. The engineers, on the other hand, were stressed. Dr. Harris, a tall man with messy hair, led the team. He was kind, but frustrated. The other 9 engineers were brilliant, but argued all the time. They tried everything, new codes, new wires, new plans, but nothing worked. The city's lights flickered every night, and people were scared. If the core failed completely, Brightville would go dark. Businesses would close. Hospitals would struggle. The engineers felt the weight of the city on their shoulders. Lila watched them quietly. She noticed things they didn't like, how the core's hum changed when certain buttons were pressed, or how a tiny light blinked in a pattern. She didn't know why, but those details stuck in her head. One day while mopping near the control panel, she overheard Dr. Harris say, "The core's feedback loop is unstable. We've tried everything." Lila paused. Feedback loop? She didn't know what it meant, but it sounded like a cycle that wasn't working right. Like when Timmy's toy car got stuck spinning in circles. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the core. She grabbed a notebook and sketched what she remembered: the buttons, the wires, the blinking light. She wasn't sure why, but she felt like the answer was simple, hidden in plain sight. The next day, she went to work early. The lab was empty. She stood by the control panel, staring at the buttons. Her heart raced. She wasn't supposed to touch anything, but something inside her said, try. Lila pressed a small, dusty button no one had noticed before. The core hummed louder, then steadied. The screen lit up green. She gasped. Had she fixed it? Just then, the engineers rushed in, shocked to see her there. Dr. Harris ran to the panel, his eyes wide. Lila, what did you do? He asked. She opened her mouth to explain, but before she could, the alarm blared. The screen turned red. System overload! It screamed. The room shook. The engineer shouted. Lila's heart sank. Had she made everything worse? Was the city doomed because of her? She stared at the flashing screen, her hands trembling as the core's hum grew louder and louder, threatening to explode. The lab was chaos. The alarm wailed, red lights flashing across the control room like an angry heartbeat. The energy core's hum had turned into a terrifying roar, shaking the floor under Lila's feet. The 10 engineers scrambled, yelling at each other to shut down the system. Dr. Harris pushed through the crowd, his face sweaty and pale. Lila, step away from the panel, he shouted. But his voice wasn't angry, it was scared. Lila's hands shook as she backed up, her mop lying forgotten on the floor. She felt small, like a kid caught doing something wrong. Had she really broken the core? Would Brightville go dark because of her? The screen flashed system overload again, and the engineers typed furiously, trying to stop the core from exploding. Lila's heart pounded. She wanted to run, to hide, but her feet wouldn't move. Then, something caught her eye, a tiny blue light on the control panel, blinking in a strange pattern. It was the same light she'd noticed weeks ago while cleaning. No one else seemed to see it. The engineers were too busy panicking. Lila's mind raced. That light, it was trying to tell her something. But what? She took a shaky step forward. Dr. Harris, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't hear her over the alarm. She tried again, louder. Dr. Harris! He turned his eyes wide. What, Lila? This isn't the time. But she pointed at the blue light. That light, it's blinking wrong. It's too fast. The other engineers stopped and stared at her, some rolling their eyes. She's a cleaner, not an engineer, one muttered. She's wasting our time. Dr. Harris hesitated, then looked at the light. His brow furrowed. That's the secondary regulator, he said slowly. But it's not supposed to be active. Lila didn't know what a regulator was, but she remembered something from her late night sketches. The core was like Timmy's toy car when it got stuck. You had to slow it down, not speed it up. Maybe it's going too fast, she said. Can you slow it down? The engineers laughed, but Dr. Harris didn't. He pushed his glasses up and typed something into the panel. The blue light slowed, then steadied. The alarm stopped. The core's roar softened to a hum. The screen flickered, then turned green again. The room went silent. It's stable, Dr. Harris whispered. The engineers gaped, their mouths open. Lila, the cleaner, had just saved the core again. But the moment didn't last. A loud bang came from the core's chamber deep in the lab. The floor shook harder than before, and a new alarm screamed this one louder, sharper. The screen flashed a new message. Core breach imminent. The engineers froze, their faces white. A breach meant the core could explode, taking half the city with it. Lila's stomach dropped. She looked at Dr. Harris, who was staring at the screen, his hands shaking. We're out of time, he said. We can't fix this. Lila's mind spun. She thought of Timmy waiting at home, trusting her to come back. She thought of Brightville's flickering lights, the scared people, the hospitals. She wasn't an engineer, but she couldn't give up. She stepped closer to the panel, her eyes scanning the buttons and lights. The engineer shouted at her to stop, but Dr. Harris held up a hand. Let her try, he said quietly. She's gotten us this far. Lila's fingers hovered over the panel. She didn't know what she was doing, but something felt right. She remembered her notebook, the patterns she'd drawn, the way the core seemed to talk through its lights. There was a small switch, half hidden under a cover, labeled Manual Override. No one had touched it in years. Her heart raced. What if it made things worse? What if it saved the city? She reached for it, her hand trembling. Just as her fingers brushed the switch, the lab's doors burst open. A man in a black suit stormed in, followed by 2 security guards. "Stop her," he shouted. "She's not authorized." The guards rushed toward Lila, their boots pounding the floor. Dr. Harris stepped in front of her, but the man in the suit glared. "This is a government facility, Harris. She's a cleaner, not a scientist." Lila froze, her hand inches from the switch. The core's hum grew louder, the alarm screaming. The guards were closing in. Would she have time to flip the switch? Would it even work? Or would they stop her before she could try? The guards were almost on her, their heavy boots echoing in the chaotic lab. Lila's hand hovered over the manual override switch, her heart thumping so loud she could barely think. The core's roar grew deafening, and the alarm scream pierced the air. The screen flashed, "Core breach imminent," in angry red letters. Lila glanced at Dr. Harris, who stood between her and the guards, his face tense but determined. "Do it, Lila," he shouted. The man in the black suit yelled, "Stop her now." But Lila's fingers moved faster. She flipped the switch. A loud click echoed through the room. The core's roar stopped instantly, like someone had flipped off a giant radio. The alarms fell silent. The screen flickered, then glowed a steady green. The engineers gasped, staring at the panel. The core was stable, really stable this time. No warnings, no flashing lights. Lila stepped back, her hands shaking. She'd done it. The city was safe. But before she could feel relief, the man in the suit stormed forward, his face red with anger. "Arrest her," he barked. "She's tampered with government property." The guards grabbed Lila's arms, pulling her away from the panel. "Wait," Dr. Harris shouted, stepping in front of the man. "She just saved the city. The core was going to blow." The man in the suit, who introduced himself as Mr. Vance, the lab's government overseer, didn't care. "She's unauthorized," he snapped. "She's a cleaner, not an engineer. She shouldn't be touching anything." The other engineers watched, some whispering, others too shocked to speak. Lila's heart sank. She'd fixed the core, but now she was in trouble. Big trouble. As the guards dragged her toward the door, Lila's mind raced. She thought of Timmy, waiting at home with his toy car, expecting her to read him a bedtime story. Would she go to jail? Would she lose her job? She looked back at the core, humming quietly now, and felt a strange mix of pride and fear. She'd done something amazing, but why did it feel like she'd made a mistake? Dr. Harris followed, pleading with Mr. Vance. "She solved what we couldn't. 10 of use experts failed for months. Lila figured it out in days. You can't punish her for that." Mr. Vance stopped, his eyes narrowing. "How does she know what to do?" he asked, his voice sharp. "A cleaner doesn't just fix an energy core. What's she hiding?" Lila froze. She wasn't hiding anything, she just noticed things, like the blinking lights and patterns. But the way Mr. Vance looked at her made her feel like a criminal. The guards pushed her into a small office and locked the door. Lila sat on a hard chair, her hands trembling. She could hear Mr. Vance and Dr. Harris arguing outside. "She's a nobody," Mr. Vance said. "This doesn't add up. I want her questioned." Dr. Harris fought back. "She's a hero, Vance. The city would be dark without her." Lila hugged herself, trying to stay calm. She wasn't a hero. She was just a mom who saw something no one else did. Then, something strange happened. The office phone rang. Mr. Vance answered it, his face changing from angry to confused. He hung up and stared at Lila through the glass door, his eyes wide. He whispered something to Dr. Harris, who looked just as shocked. The guards unlocked the door, but instead of dragging her out, they stepped back. Mr. Vance walked in, holding a file with her name on it. Lila Thompson, he said slowly. You're not who you say you are you? Lila's stomach dropped. What was he talking about? She was just Lila, a single mom who cleaned the lab. But the file in his hand looked old, with faded pages and strange symbols. Mr. Vance opened it, revealing a photo of a young woman who looked exactly like Lilibut. It wasn't her. This is from 20 years ago, he said. Care to explain? Lila's mouth went dry. She stared at the photo, her mind spinning. Who was that woman? Why did she look like her? And why was Mr. Vance so nervous? Before she could answer, the lab shook again, not from the core, but from something outside. A loud crash echoed, and the lights flickered. Dr. Harris ran to the window, his face pale. What is that? He gasped. Lila stood, her heart racing. Through the window, she saw strange lights in the sky, moving fast, like nothing she'd ever seen. Mr. Vance grabbed the file and stared at Lila, his voice shaking. What did you really do to the core? He whispered. And who are you working for? Lila's heart raced as she stared out the office window, the strange lights in the sky pulsing like stars that didn't belong. They weren't planes or helicopters, they moved too fast, too smoothly, darting in ways that made her stomach twist. The lab's lights flickered again, and the hum of the energy core, now stable, seemed to pulse in time with the lights outside. Mr. Vance clutched the mysterious file, his eyes darting between Lila and the window. What did you do? He whispered, his voice shaking. Did you activate something? I didn't do anything, Lila said, her voice cracking. She was just a cleaner, a mom, not some secret agent. But the photo in the file, the woman who looked like her, made her head spin. Who was she? And why did Mr. Vance think she was working for someone? Dr. Harris pushed past the guards, his face pale. Vance, we need to focus on those lights. They're not normal. The core's stable, but something's interfering with it. The guards, unsure what to do, loosened their grip on Lila. The lab's alarms blared again, but this time, the screen showed something new. External signal detected. The engineers rushed to their stations, typing frantically. One of them, a young woman named Sarah, shouted, It's not the core. Something outside is sending a signal, messing with our systems. Lila's mind flashed to the blinking lights she'd seen on the core weeks ago. They had a pattern, like a code. Were these skylights doing the same thing? Mr. Vance grabbed Lila's arm, his face inches from hers. That file says you're connected to Project Starfall classified experiment from 20 years ago. Explain yourself. Lila's knees wobbled. I don't know what that is, she said. I'm just Lila. I clean floors. But doubt crept into her mind. Her parents had died when she was young, and she'd grown up with her grandma who never talked about the past. Could there be something she didn't know about herself? Dr. Harris interrupted. Vance, stop. Those lights are getting closer. We need to figure this out before they do something to the core. He turned to Lila, his eyes kind but urgent. Lila, you saw patterns. No one else did. Can you look at the signal data? Maybe you'll see something we missed. Mr. Vance scoffed, but Lila nodded, her hands trembling. She wasn't sure she could help, but she thought of Timmy, waiting at home, and the city counting on the core. Sarah pulled up the signal data on a screen, a mess of lines and numbers. Lila stared, her eyes catching a rhythm in the chaos, like the blinking lights she'd noticed before. It's repeating, she said softly, like a message. The engineer stopped, staring at her. Sarah's jaw dropped. She's right. It's a loop, but it's encrypted. Lila didn't know what encrypted meant, but she pointed at a small button on the panel labeled Signal Sync. What if we match the core to that pattern? She asked. Dr. Harris hesitated, then nodded. Do it. Lila pressed the button. The core hummed louder, and the lights outside froze, glowing brighter. Suddenly, a voice crackled through the lab's speakers, not human, but clear. Connection established, awaiting command. Everyone froze. Mr. Vance dropped the file, his face white. The lights in the sky pulsed faster, and the ground shook as something massive landed outside the lab. The voice spoke again. Lila Thompson. Identify. Lila's breath caught. How did it know her name? The engineer stared, and Mr. Vance backed away, whispering, What have you brought here? The lab doors rattled, and a shadow loomed outside, too big to be human. Lila's heart pounded. Was this her fault, or was it the key to everything?